The stars looked cold and empty as Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance. His ship moved slowly through the dark space around the dead planet below. The world had no name in their records. It was just another rock floating in the void, covered in old scars and twisted metal. "Commander, we're picking up something strange down there," said Dr. Lisa Grant from her station. She was the ship's expert on old alien ruins. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel as she studied the readings. "There are structures buried under the surface. They look very old." Jake walked over to look at her screen. The planet below was gray and lifeless. Nothing had lived there for a very long time. But the scanners showed something hidden beneath layers of rock and dust. Strange shapes that looked like they might have been buildings once. "How old?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her readings again. "Maybe 3,000 years, could be older." She looked up at him with excited eyes. "Commander, I think we found something important." Jake nodded. Finding old ruins was why they were out here in the first place. The human colonies needed to know more about the aliens who lived in this part of space long ago. Maybe they could learn something useful. "Take us down," Jake told his pilot, Captain Amy Rodriguez. "Find a safe place to land." Amy's hands moved over the controls. "Yes, sir. Landing site looks clear. No signs of life or danger." The ship dropped through the thin atmosphere toward the dead world's surface. Jake could see the planet getting bigger. In the view screen, ancient blast craters covered the ground like ugly wounds. Whatever had happened here, it had been violent. They landed near what looked like the biggest group of buried structures. Jake gathered his team. Besides Lisa and Amy, he brought Lieutenant Ben Carter for security and 3 other crew members. They put on their environment suits and stepped out onto the planet's dusty surface. The air was thin and cold. Their boots crunched on the rocky ground as they walked toward the buried ruins. Lisa carried her scanning equipment while Ben kept watch for any danger. "There," Lisa pointed to a spot where twisted metal stuck up from the ground. "The scanner says there's a big chamber right underneath us. We need to dig down about 10 feet. They used their portable digging tools to cut through the rock and dirt. After 2 hours of work, they found a smooth metal wall. Lisa ran her scanner over it and found what looked like a door. "Stand back," Ben said, raising his weapon. "You never knew what might be inside old alien ruins." Lisa pressed her hand against a glowing panel next to the door. Nothing happened for a moment. Then the door slid open with a soft hiss of escaping air. Inside was a large room filled with strange machines. Most of them were broken and covered in dust. But in the center of the room stood something that made them all stop and stare. It was a tall crystal about as high as a person, glowing with soft blue light. Strange symbols moved inside it like living things. Lisa walked closer, her scanner beeping faster and faster. "Commander," she whispered. "This is some kind of data storage device. It's still active after all these years." Jake felt something cold in his stomach. "Can you access it?" Lisa nodded and connected her equipment to the crystal. Her fingers moved over the controls as she tried to unlock whatever was stored inside. The crystal pulsed brighter, and suddenly the air above it shimmered. A hologram appeared. It showed a beautiful blue and green planet covered in white clouds. Jake had never seen anything so lovely. Cities of light covered the continents, and ships moved between the planet and several moons. "What world is that?" Amy asked in wonder. Lisa checked her readings. Her face went very pale. "According to the data signature, that's Earth." Everyone went quiet. Earth was just a legend to them. Their grandparents had told stories about the beautiful world where humans first lived. But it was supposed to be lost somewhere in space, too far away to ever find. The hologram changed. Now it showed dark ships approaching the blue planet. They were sleek and deadly looking, with weapons that glowed red. Jake counted hundreds of them, maybe thousands. "Who are they?" Ben asked. Lisa worked at her controls, trying to get more information from the crystal. The records call them the Zephyrian Empire. 3 different alien species working together. The hologram showed what happened next. The alien ships began firing at Earth. Bright beams of energy struck the planet's surface. Cities disappeared in flashes of light. The blue oceans began to boil. The white clouds turned black with smoke. Jake watched in horror as Earth died. The beautiful world became a burning ball of rock and fire. Millions of tiny ships fled from the dying planet, carrying survivors into space. But most of them were destroyed by the alien weapons. "How long ago?" Jake asked in a quiet voice. Lisa's hand shook as she read the data. 3,000 years ago, almost exactly. The hologram changed again. It showed this dead world when it was still alive. There had been cities here too, and people, human people. The same alien ships had come here and burned this world just like they burned Earth. "They hunted us," Amy said. "They didn't just destroy Earth. They followed the survivors and killed them too." Ben's hand moved to his weapon. "Are they still out there?" Lisa worked with the crystal for several more minutes, pulling out more information. According to this, the Zephyrian Empire still exists. They control dozens of star systems. They think they killed all the humans. Jake stared at the hologram, showing Earth's destruction. His people, his real people, had come from that beautiful world, and these aliens had murdered billions of them. They had tried to wipe out humanity completely. "But they didn't kill all of us," he said slowly. "Some of the colony ships got away. We're proof of that." Lisa nodded. "The records show at least 30 ships escaped. They scattered in different directions, trying to get as far from the Zephyrians as possible." Jake felt something growing inside him. It was hot and angry, and had been waiting for 3,000 years. Around him, his crew, had the same look on their faces. They had just learned that their species had been the victims of genocide. Their real home had been murdered. "Commander," Amy said in a hard voice, "what are your orders?" Jake looked at the hologram one more time. Earth burned in the blue light, beautiful and dead. Somewhere out in space, the aliens who had done this were still alive, still thinking they had won. "We go home," Jake said. "We tell the colonies what we found, and then we decide what to do about it." But in his heart, he already knew what they would do. The Zephyrians had tried to erase humanity from the universe. Now it was time to return the favor. The message went out to every human colony in the galaxy. Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair and watched the communication officer send the encrypted signal to dozens of hidden worlds. Each colony would receive the same information. Earth was real. Earth was destroyed, and the killers were still alive. "Signal sent to all colonies, Commander," said the communication officer. "We should start getting replies in a few hours." Jake nodded. The colonies were spread across thousands of light years. Some were on planets, others on space stations built inside asteroids. All of them had been hiding for generations, keeping quiet so the aliens would never find them. Captain Amy Rodriguez walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad. "I've been studying the information from that crystal. The Zephyrian Empire is huge. They control over 40 star systems. Their main fleet has thousands of ships. How many people do we have?" Jake asked. Amy checked her numbers. "All the human colonies together have maybe 50 million people total. The Zephyrians have billions." Lieutenant Ben Carter looked up from his weapon station. "Doesn't matter how many they have if they don't see us coming." That was the key, Jake thought. The Zephyrians believed all humans were dead. They had stopped looking for survivors centuries ago. That gave humanity a big advantage. The first reply came from New Haven Colony, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, near the edge of known space. Colony leader Mark Davis appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with gray hair and angry eyes. "Commander Morrison," Davis said, "we received your message. Our historians have been studying our old records. We found references to Earth, but we thought they were just stories. You're telling us it was all real?" "Every word," Jake replied. "We have the proof. The aliens who destroyed our homeworld are called the Zephyrian Empire. They're still out there." Davis was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was hard. "What do you plan to do about it?" "That depends on what resources we have. What can your colony contribute?" Davis smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "Commander, for the past 500 years, New Haven has been building warships. We told ourselves it was for defense against pirates. But I think we always knew this day would come. We have 30 combat vessels ready to fight. More messages came in from other colonies. Freedom Station had built advanced stealth technology that could hide entire fleets. The miners on Kepler 438c had developed new types of weapons that could crack planets open. Colony after colony reported they were ready for war. Dr. Lisa Grant studied the tactical data as it came in. Jake, look at this. Every human colony has been preparing for battle. It's like they all knew we would need to fight someday. Jake understood. Even after 3,000 years, humans remembered what had been done to them. The memory of Earth's destruction had been passed down through generations. It lived in their genes, in their dreams, in their anger. How long before we can gather a fleet? Jake asked Amy. 2 months, maybe 3. The colonies need time to prepare their ships and crews. But Commander, we're not just talking about a few dozen ships. If everyone contributes what they promised, we'll have over 300 warships. Ben Carter pulled up star charts on his screen. We need to pick our targets carefully, hit them fast and hard, then disappear before they can respond. Make them afraid. Lisa had been studying the Zephyrian data from the crystal. Their empire has 3 main species working together. The Zephyrians themselves are the leaders. They look like big lizards with scales and claws. Then there are the Kethri, who are good with technology, and the Vorthan, who handle most of their military. What's their weakest point? Jake asked. Lisa pointed to a star chart. Industrial worlds. They have 5 major manufacturing planets that build most of their ships and weapons. If we destroy those, it will take them years to rebuild. Jake studied the chart. The industrial worlds were spread across Zephyrian space, each one heavily defended. But they were also far from the main military bases. If human ships could get close without being detected, they could do serious damage. Which one first? Amy asked. Ben highlighted one of the worlds. Zarian Prime. It's the biggest manufacturing center, but it's also the most isolated. Only 2 patrol ships guard the system. If we hit it with everything we have, we can destroy it before help arrives. Jake felt that cold anger growing stronger in his chest. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrians had lived in peace while humans hid in the dark between stars. They had forgotten about the genocide they committed. It was time to remind them. Send another message to all colonies, Jake ordered. Tell them we're going to war. Have them send their best ships and crews to these coordinates in 2 months. We're going to hit Zarian Prime first. The communication officer sent the message. Within hours, replies started coming back. Every human colony agreed to join the fight. Some sent messages of support. Others sent detailed plans for new weapons. All of them sent the same promise. They would be ready. Dr. Grant worked day and night studying Zephyrian technology. She learned how their weapons worked, how their ships were built, how their cities were powered. Most importantly, she learned how to turn their own technology against them. Jake, I found something interesting, she said one day. The Zephyrians use plasma weapons, just like the ones that destroyed Earth. But I think I can modify our weapons to use the same energy type. We can burn their worlds the same way they burned ours. Jake looked at the weapon designs on her screen. They were powerful enough to turn entire cities into ash. How long to build them? If every colony works together, maybe 6 weeks. We'll have enough firepower to glass a planet. Amy came over to look at the designs. Is that what we want? To become like them? Jake thought about the hologram of Earth dying. He thought about the billions of humans who never got to see the stars again. He thought about 3,000 years of hiding and running and being afraid. They started this war, he said quietly. We're going to finish it. The colonies worked, faster than anyone expected. Ships arrived at the meeting point early, loaded with new weapons and eager crews. Jake stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the human fleet grow larger every day. Captain Rodriguez handed him the final count. 312 ships, Commander. Every colony sent their best. We're ready. Jake looked out at the fleet surrounding his ship. Every vessel carried the children of Earth, the survivors of genocide, the inheritors of a 3,000-year-old debt. They had hidden long enough. Now it was time to collect what was owed. Set course for Xerion. Prime, Jake ordered. It's time to begin. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Xerion system. 300 ships appeared in the darkness of space, but the Zephyrians could not see them. Human stealth technology kept the fleet hidden like ghosts in the night. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the planet ahead. Xerion Prime was covered in lights. Massive factories stretched across 3 continents, building weapons and ships for the Zephyrian Empire. Millions of aliens lived and worked on the surface, unaware that death was coming for them. "All ships report ready, Commander," said Captain Amy Rodriguez. "The stealth fields are holding. They don't know we're here." Jake checked the tactical display. 2 Zephyrian patrol ships orbited the planet, but they were old and slow. The real defenses were on the surface: energy shields, missile batteries, and fighter squadrons. It looked impressive, but Jake knew it wouldn't be enough. "Dr. Grant, are the new weapons ready?" Jake asked. Lisa Grant looked up from her station. Her modified plasma cannons had been installed on every ship in the fleet. They used the same technology that had burned Earth, but humanity had made them stronger and hotter. "All weapons systems are online," Lisa said. "The plasma charges are at full power. Commander, these weapons will burn everything they touch." Lieutenant Ben Carter studied the planet's defenses. "I count 48 shield generators protecting the main industrial centers. If we take those out first, the factories will be defenseless." Jake nodded. The plan was simple. Half the fleet would target the shields and defensive systems. The other half would hit the factories and cities. It would be fast and complete. "Signal all ships," Jake ordered. "Attack begins in 30 seconds. No survivors, no mercy. Make them pay for Earth." The human fleet moved closer to the planet. Still invisible, still silent. The Zephyrians went about their daily lives, working in their factories, living in their cities, never knowing that their victims had returned. 10 seconds, Amy announced. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. Space erupted in light and fury. 300 human ships dropped their stealth fields and unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams crossed the darkness like spears of fire, striking Xerion Prime's shields and defenses. The first thing to die was the orbital defense station. A massive structure that had protected the planet for centuries vanished in a ball of white fire. The 2 patrol ships tried to send a warning, but human jammers blocked all communications. They died seconds later, torn apart by focused plasma fire. On the planet's surface, the shield generators exploded one after another. Each one created a mushroom cloud of fire and smoke that could be seen from orbit. Without the shields, the factories and cities were naked and helpless. Surface. "Defenses are down," Ben reported. "All primary targets are exposed." Jake felt no joy, only cold satisfaction. "Begin planetary bombardment. Burn it all." The real attack began. Hundreds of plasma beams rained down from space, striking every industrial complex on the planet. Factories that had built weapons for 1,000 years became infernos in seconds. The heat was so intense that metal melted and stone turned to glass. In the city of Korthvar, 1 million Zephyrians lived and worked. They were tall, lizard-like creatures, with green scales and yellow eyes. They had never seen a human, never even heard that humans existed. To them, humans were just an old myth that their grandparents barely remembered. The plasma beams struck Korthvar at exactly noon local time. The city center vanished in the first second. The outer districts lasted almost 10 seconds before they, too, became fire and ash. 1 million voices screamed once, then fell silent forever. Jake watched the city burn on his view screen. These creatures had helped destroy Earth. Their ancestors had murdered billions of his people. Now they were paying. "The price. Target the mining complexes next," Jake ordered. "Don't leave anything standing." Captain Rodriguez coordinated the bombardment from her station. "Gamma Squadron, hit the northern mining facilities. Delta Squadron, take the southern complexes. I want everything reduced to slag." The attack continued for 2 hours. Every factory, every mine, every military base on Xerion Prime was targeted and destroyed. The planet's surface became a landscape of fire and molten rock. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were reduced to glowing craters. Marine Sergeant Tony Phillips watched the destruction from the troop transport bay. His soldiers were ready to land and finish any survivors. But there were no survivors. The plasma weapons had been too thorough, too hot. Nothing could live in that fire. "Sir," Tony said over the radio, "should we deploy ground forces?" Jake looked at the burning planet below. There was nothing left to fight. The industrial heart of the Zephyrian Empire was dead. "Negative, Sergeant. There's no one left down there." Dr. Grant monitored the planet's energy readings. The massive industrial complexes had produced enough power to light a small star. Now all that energy was being released at once as the fusion. Reactors overloaded and exploded. "Commander," Lisa said quietly, "the planetary fusion grid is collapsing. We need to pull back or the shockwave will damage our ships." Jake gave the order to retreat to a safe distance. The human fleet moved away from Zerion Prime just as the planet's core began to destabilize. The explosions on the surface had triggered something deep underground. "All ships, this is Morrison," Jake announced over the fleet communications. "Phase 1 is complete. Zerion Prime is destroyed. The Zephyrian Empire has lost its primary weapons manufacturing center." Cheers echoed through the fleet. After 3,000 years of hiding, humanity had struck back. The aliens who had burned Earth were finally tasting fire themselves. Amy pulled up intelligence reports on her screen. "Commander, we're picking up emergency transmissions from other Zephyrian worlds. They know something happened here, but they don't know what. Our jamming worked perfectly." That was important. If the Zephyrians didn't know who had attacked them, they couldn't prepare proper defenses. The next target would be just as surprised as Zerion Prime had been. Ben studied the tactical situation. "Sir, we have enough fuel and ammunition for 2 more attacks like this one. Where do we hit next?" Jake looked at the burning planet one last time. Zerion Prime had been the industrial heart of the Zephyrian Empire. Now it was a dead rock covered in ash and fire. The aliens would need decades to rebuild what they had lost here. "Set course for the Demios system," Jake ordered. "Their agricultural center is next. We're going to starve them while they burn." Dr. Grant prepared her weapons for the next attack. The modified plasma cannons had worked perfectly. They burned hotter and spread faster than anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. Earth's fire had come home to roost. As the human fleet jumped to faster than light speed, Jake thought about the crystal they had found on that dead world. It had shown him Earth's destruction, the murder of his people, the genocide that had scattered humanity across the stars. Now the Zephyrians would learn what humans had learned 3,000 years ago. They would discover what it meant to watch their worlds burn. They would understand the price of trying to erase an entire species. The hunt had only just begun. News of Zerion Prime's destruction spread like wildfire through the Zephyrian Empire. On the capital world of Zephyr, Supreme Overlord Vexthar called an emergency meeting of the High Council. The massive reptilian leader slammed his clawed fist on the crystal table as holographic reports filled the air around him. "Impossible," Vexthar roared. "Zerion Prime had the best defenses in the Empire. Nothing could destroy it so completely." War Commander Thexkar, head of the military, studied the battle reports with his yellow eyes. "My lord, our patrol ship sent no distress signal. The planetary shields failed in minutes. Whoever did this used weapons we have never seen before." The other council members whispered among themselves. The Kethri technology minister, a thin blue-skinned alien with 6 arms, brought up tactical displays. "The energy signatures are strange. These plasma weapons burn much hotter than ours. The attackers also used advanced stealth technology." "Who could have such weapons?" asked the Vorthan defense minister. He was a massive creature covered in thick armor plates. "We know. Every military force in this part of the galaxy." Vexthar's eyes narrowed. Deep in his ancient memory, something stirred. A half-forgotten name from the old wars. But that was impossible. They had made sure of that 3,000 years ago. Meanwhile, the human fleet had already reached its next target. Admiral Marcus Stone now commanded the main battle group while Jake Morrison coordinated the overall campaign. They hung in space above Demios, the agricultural world that fed half the Zephyrian Empire. "Surface scans complete," reported Dr. Susan Blake, who had joined Dr. Grant's science team. Demios has massive farming complexes covering 4 continents. They grow enough food to feed 2 billion Zephyrians. Jake looked at the peaceful world below. Green fields stretched to the horizon. Huge atmospheric processors turned the air into the perfect mixture for growing crops. Cities full of farmers, and workers dotted the landscape. "How long until they starve without this world?" Jake asked. Dr. Grant checked her calculations. "The Empire imports 70% of its food from Demios. Without it, they'll have serious shortages within 6 months, famine within a year. Admiral," Stone pulled up the fleet deployment. "We have 200 ships ready for attack. The other 100 are refueling at the rally point. Demios only has basic defenses. This should be easier than Zerion Prime." Jake nodded. "Begin the attack." "Same pattern as before. Hit the defenses first, then burn everything else." The human fleet dropped its stealth fields and opened fire. Demios had been a peaceful world for centuries. Its defenses were old and weak, designed to stop pirates, not a full military assault. The orbital stations died in the first volley. On the surface, Zephyrian farmers looked up in terror as fire rained from the sky. Most had never seen combat. They ran screaming as their fields began to burn, but there was nowhere to hide from the plasma beams that turned everything to ash. Colonel Rick Hayes led the ground assault teams. His Marines landed in the burning ruins of the capital city to plant something special. It was a memorial beacon containing the names of every human who had died when Earth burned. The message was broadcast on all Zephyrian frequencies. "This is for Earth," Rick's voice echoed across the burning world. "This is for every human child who never grew up, every parent who never came home, every life you stole from us. We remember them all." The attack on Demios took only 4 hours. When it was over, the agricultural world was a smoking wasteland. The atmospheric processors had been turned into weapons, creating planet-wide firestorms that would burn for weeks. Nothing would grow on Demios for decades. Back on Zephyr, the reports kept getting worse. War Commander Thexkar stood before the High Council with news that made their blood run cold. "My lords, we have lost contact with the Corinth mining system. Long-range sensors show massive explosions. The asteroid mining facilities appear to be completely destroyed." Supreme Overlord Vexithar felt fear creeping into his ancient heart. "How many attacks is that now?" 7 worlds in 2 weeks, my lord. Industrial centers, agricultural worlds, mining systems. Whoever is doing this knows exactly where to hit us to cause maximum damage." The Kethri minister brought up tactical displays showing the pattern of attacks. "They are not random. Each target weakens our ability to fight back. First they destroyed our weapons factories, then our food supply, now our raw materials. This is a coordinated campaign." "But who?" demanded Vexthar. "What enemy could field such a large fleet without us knowing?" Old General Kethval, the oldest member of the council, spoke in a whisper that made everyone lean forward. "My lord, I have studied the old records, the weapon signatures, the tactics, the complete destruction. This reminds me of something from the ancient wars." "What are you talking about, old fool?" Vexthar snapped. "The humans, my lord. This is how the humans fought in the old days, before we cleansed them from the galaxy." The council chamber fell, silent. The word human had not been spoken in official meetings for over 1,000 years. They were extinct, wiped out completely during the Great Cleansing. "Impossible," Vexthar said, but his voice shook. "We destroyed their homeworld. We hunted down every colony ship. We made sure none survived." General Kethval pulled up ancient battle records. "Perhaps we were not as thorough as we believed. The humans were clever. Some may have escaped to the far reaches of space and hidden there, growing strong." War Commander Thexakar studied the old human tactics. The similarities were undeniable. "If humans have returned, we are in serious trouble. They were the most dangerous enemy we ever faced. That is why we decided to exterminate them completely." Meanwhile, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched another Zephyrian world die. This time it was Vorthkala, a major shipbuilding center. The orbital construction yards that had built warships for centuries were now twisted, metal and fire. That makes 8 worlds, Commander, Amy Rodriguez reported. Our intelligence says the Zephyrian military is starting to panic. They're pulling ships back to defend their core worlds. Dr. Grant analyzed the latest intelligence reports. They're beginning to figure out who we are. Intercepted communications. Mention humans several times, they're scared. Jake felt satisfaction but also impatience. 8 worlds were just the beginning. The Zephyrian Empire controlled over 40 star systems. They had murdered billions of humans. 8 worlds was not nearly enough payment for that debt. How many ships do we have left in fighting condition? Jake asked. Admiral Stone checked the fleet status. About 250. We've lost some to battle damage, but the enemy has barely touched us. Their defenses can't handle our stealth technology and superior weapons. Ben Carter highlighted the next targets on the tactical display. I recommend we hit their military academies next. If we kill their officers in training, it will cripple their ability to fight back for decades. Jake looked at the star chart, showing Zephyrian space. So many worlds, so many aliens who had benefited from Earth's destruction. They had lived in peace and prosperity, while humans hid in the darkness between stars. No, Jake said quietly. It's time to send them a message they'll never forget. Set course for their homeworld. It's time to knock on Vexthar's front door. The human fleet turned toward the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. Behind them, 8 worlds burned in the darkness. Ahead lay the final confrontation that had been 3,000 years in the making. On Zephyr, Supreme Overlord Vexthar stared at the tactical display showing human fleet movements. They were coming for him, just as his ancestors had gone for Earth. The circle was closing, and he finally understood what his people had awakened when they tried to commit genocide. The humans had returned, and they were bringing hell with them. The human fleet arrived at the edge of the Zephyr system like death itself. 230 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. At their head was Admiral Jake Morrison's flagship, now renamed Earth's Vengeance. Before them lay the Zephyrian homeworld, a massive planet covered in golden cities and crystal spires. This was where the order to destroy Earth had been given 3,000 years ago. This was where the genocide had been planned and celebrated. Surface population 4 billion, reported Dr. Lisa Grant from her station. It's the most heavily defended world in their empire. 300 orbital defense platforms, 2,000 fighter ships, and a planetary shield that could stop a meteor impact. Jake stared at the beautiful world that had spawned his people's killers. It won't be enough. Supreme Overlord Vexthar stood in his war room deep beneath the planet's surface. Around him, his generals and admirals argued about defense strategies. But Vexthar knew the truth. The humans had destroyed 8 major worlds without losing a single ship. No defense would stop them now. My lord, War Commander Thexkar said urgently, the human fleet has arrived. Our sensors count over 200 ships. They're using stealth technology we cannot penetrate. The old Supreme Overlord closed his yellow eyes. In his long life, he had conquered dozens of worlds. He had enslaved entire species. But he had never faced an enemy driven by 3,000 years of hate. Open a communication channel, Vexthar ordered. Let me speak to their leader. On the bridge of Earth's Vengeance, Communication Officer Kelly Barnes looked up in surprise. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the planetary surface. It's the Zephyrian Supreme Overlord himself. Jake almost refused to answer, but curiosity won. Put him on screen. The massive reptilian form of Vexthar appeared on the main view screen. He was old and scarred, with scales that had turned gray with age, but his eyes still burned with the intelligence that had built an empire. So, Vexthar said in a deep, rumbling voice, the humans have returned from extinction. I confess I am impressed. We believed we had killed you all. Jake felt cold rage building in his chest. You tried. You murdered our homeworld and hunted down our survivors. But some of us escaped to the darkness between stars. We've been waiting. 3,000 years is a long time to hold a grudge, Vexthar said. Perhaps we can negotiate. The Empire has great wealth. We could offer compensation for past wrongs. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. Compensation? You turned Earth into a ball of fire. You tried to erase humanity from existence. What compensation could possibly be enough for genocide? Vexthar's scales darkened with fear. Then what do you want? Justice, Jake said simply. The same justice you gave Earth. Before Vexthar could respond, Jake cut the transmission. He turned to his crew, who were watching with grim satisfaction. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, Jake announced over the fleet communications. Today we finish what they started 3,000 years ago. Today we collect the debt they owe for Earth. Prepare for planetary assault. Captain Amy Rodriguez coordinated the attack from her station. All fleet commanders report ready. Weapons. Charged, fighters launched. Admiral, we're ready to burn their world. But Jake hesitated for a moment. On his desk was a small crystal data core, the same one they had found on that dead world so long ago. It contained the last messages from Earth, final words from parents to children, lovers to beloved, the dying words of a murdered world. Dr. Grant noticed his pause. Jake, are you all right? Jake picked up the crystal and held it toward the view screen showing Zephyr. I'm thinking about all the people who never got to see this day. My great-grandmother used to tell stories about Earth's blue skies and green forests. She died believing her people would never have justice. Lieutenant Ben Carter checked his weapons display. Admiral, the longer we wait, the more time they have to prepare their defenses. Jake nodded and placed the crystal back on his desk. You're right. Begin the attack. Show them what humans learned in the darkness. The battle for Zephyr began with a storm of light. Human ships dropped their stealth fields and unleashed 3,000 years of accumulated rage. The orbital defense, platforms, mighty structures that had protected the homeworld for millennia, vanished in seconds under the concentrated plasma fire. The Zephyrian fleet tried to respond, but their ships were no match for human technology. Admiral Stone led a squadron of fast attack ships that tore through the enemy formations like wolves among sheep. Fighter after fighter exploded in brilliant flashes of light. On the planet's surface, millions of Zephyrians looked up in terror as their perfect sky filled with fire. They had been the masters of the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be prey. Now they remembered. Planetary shields are down, Amy reported. Surface defenses are destroyed. The planet is defenseless. Jake stood and walked to the front of the bridge, looking down at the world that had ordered Earth's destruction. Dr. Grant, are you ready? Lisa Grant checked her modified atmospheric processors one last time. The humans had learned from studying Zephyrian technology. They knew how to turn a planet's own air against it, how to create firestorms that would burn everything on the surface. Atmospheric conversion weapons are ready, Lisa said quietly. Jake, once we start this, there's no stopping it. The entire planet will burn. Jake thought about the hologram of Earth dying, about the beautiful blue world that had been turned to ash and fire. He thought about the colony ships fleeing into space, carrying the last remnants of humanity. He thought about 3,000 years of hiding and running and being afraid. For Earth, Jake said. Fire. The atmospheric processors struck Zephyr's upper atmosphere and began their deadly work. The planet's own air became fuel for a fire that spread across every continent. Cities that had stood for 10,000 years became infernos in minutes. Supreme Overlord Vexthar felt the ground shake as fire came down from the sky. His war room, buried deep underground, was supposed to be safe. But the heat was so intense that even the bedrock began to crack. My lord, Vexthar gasped as smoke filled the bunker. The surface temperature is rising past the survival threshold. We have maybe an hour before even the deepest shelters fail. Vexthar laughed bitterly. His empire was dying around him, consumed by the same fire his ancestors had used on Earth. The humans have learned our lessons well. They are better students than we ever imagined. On Earth's vengeance, Jake watched Zephyr burn. The golden cities became pillars of flame. The crystal spires melted like ice in summer. 4 billion Zephyrians died as their homeworld became a funeral pyre. All enemy ships destroyed, Ben reported. Planetary defense grid is down. Surface fires are spreading across all continents. Dr. Grant monitored the atmospheric readings. The firestorm is self-sustaining now. It will burn for days. Nothing on the surface will survive. Jake felt no joy, only a deep satisfaction that had been waiting 3 millennia to arrive. The debt was paid, Earth was avenged, the Zephyrian Empire was ending the same way it had ended humanity's first home. Captain Rodriguez brought him the final reports. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining Zephyrian worlds. Without their homeworld and leadership, the Empire is collapsing. It's over." Jake looked out at the burning planet one last time. Somewhere in that fire was Supreme, Overlord Vexthar, learning what his victims had learned long ago, learning what it meant to watch your world die. "Set course for Earth," Jake ordered. "It's time to go home." The human fleet turned away from the dying Zephyrian homeworld and began the long journey back to humanity's birthplace. Behind them, Zephyr burned in the darkness, a funeral pyre for an empire that had tried to commit genocide and paid the ultimate price. In the cargo hold of Earth's vengeance, engineers worked on terraforming equipment that would restore Earth's atmosphere and oceans. The blue world would live again. Humanity's long exile was finally over. Jake sat in his ready room and opened the crystal data core one last time. The final message from Earth played in the air before him, a mother's voice singing a lullaby to children who would never grow up. "Sleep now, little ones," the voice whispered. "Dream of stars and ships and better days to come." Jake smiled and closed the crystal. The better days had finally arrived. The space station hung in the void like a massive silver egg. Nexus Prime was the size of Earth's moon, built by every species in the galaxy working together. Today, it hosted the annual power demonstration ceremony. Captain Lisa Gordon stood on the bridge of her small observation ship, the UES Defender. Her hands rested on the cool metal of the control panel as she watched through the viewing window. Dozens of alien warships floated in the distance, each one a masterpiece of advanced technology from different worlds. "Captain, the Zephyrians are starting their demonstration," said Lieutenant Jake Morris, her second-in-command. He was young but skilled, always eager to learn about alien technology. Lisa nodded and looked at the massive crystalline ships of the Zephyrian Empire. They were beautiful in a deadly way, all sharp angles and glowing energy lines. The lead ship suddenly shimmered and became translucent. Then it passed right through an asteroid like a ghost through a wall. "Quantum phase technology," whispered Amy Shaw, their science officer. She pushed her glasses up her nose and studied her instruments. "They can shift their molecular structure between dimensions, makes them impossible to hit in battle." On the main communication screen, the Zephyrian High Commander appeared. Its face was like a bird's, with 3 eyes and feathers that changed color with emotion. Right now, they were a mocking shade of purple. "Behold the power of true civilization," the commander announced, its voice translated through their computers with a metallic tone. Not like some species who still use primitive chemical rockets and metal bullets. Lisa felt her jaw tighten. She knew the commander was talking about Earth. Humans were the newest, members of the Galactic Confederation, and most aliens looked down on them. Next, the Krellian hegemony showed off their dark matter cannons. Their ships were sleek and black, shaped like submarine torpedoes. When they fired, space itself seemed to ripple. The energy beams were invisible except for their effect on nearby debris, which was torn apart at the molecular level. The Krellian ambassador spoke through their translator. "Dark matter manipulation requires minds far beyond simple organic thinking. It demands a connection to forces that primitive brains cannot comprehend." Lisa noticed her crew shifting uncomfortably. Being called primitive was getting old. They were here representing Earth, but their tiny ship had only basic defensive shields and conventional weapons. Compared to these alien technologies, they might as well be throwing stones. The Valdari Collective was next. Their ships moved without any visible engines, controlled by pure thought. Multiple pilots linked their minds together, creating a group consciousness that could react faster than any individual. Their ships danced through space in perfect synchronization, destroying target practice drones with psychic energy pulses. The Valdari speaker, a tall being with silver skin and no visible mouth, communicated directly into their minds. Physical, technology is a crutch. True power comes from the mind united. Your species thinks too small, too alone. Finally, the Axiom Republic demonstrated their AI-controlled dreadnoughts. These ships required no crews at all. Artificial minds piloted them, maintained them, and fought with them. The AI moved their ships in ways that would kill any organic pilot, pulling turns at forces that would turn blood into jelly. The Axiom delegate, a mechanical being with a constantly changing holographic face, spoke in mathematical terms that their computers had to simplify for human understanding. Logic and calculation surpass biological limitations. Why risk organic lives when perfect machine minds can fight better? Lisa watched all this with growing frustration. Each alien species had found different paths to power, but all of them looked down on humanity's approach. They couldn't understand why humans still used pilots in ships, bullets in guns, and chemical rockets to cross space. The ceremony moved to the diplomatic section. Ambassador Carl Foster represented Earth in the formal meetings. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. Lisa watched on her ship's screen as he sat at the massive round table with all the other species representatives. The Zephyrian High Commander addressed him directly. Ambassador Foster, your species has shown no progress since joining the Confederation. When will Earth abandon its primitive technologies and join the modern galaxy? Carl Foster cleared his throat. He had prepared for this question. Earth's technology development follows our own path. We believe in understanding the fundamentals before understanding, interrupted the Krellian ambassador. Its tentacles writhed in what Lisa recognized as laughter. You understand nothing. Your chemical engines, your metal hulls, your binary computers, all obsolete technology that other species discarded thousands of years ago. The Valdari representative's thoughts pressed into everyone's minds. Perhaps Earth should consider tributary status, provide resources to more advanced species in exchange for protection. It would be more practical than pretending to be equals. Lisa saw Carl's face redden. She knew he was fighting to stay diplomatic. But the suggestion that Earth become a servant world to these aliens made her own blood boil. The Axiom delegate calculated aloud. Earth's current technology places them at 14.7% of average galactic standard. By logical analysis, their defensive capabilities are insufficient for independent survival. Termination of sovereignty would optimize resource distribution. Carl Foster stood up slowly. His voice was calm, but Lisa could see the steel in his eyes. Earth may be new to this community, but we are not inferior. Our approach to technology may be different, but it has served us well. We will continue on our own path. The alien representatives exchanged looks that seemed to say, "Look at the primitive human pretending to be strong." As the ceremony drew to a close, the alien warships began powering up their advanced engines, preparing to depart. Each ship's departure was a showing of power. The Zephyrians phased in and out of existence. The Krellians opened tiers in space-time to jump across dimensions. The Valdari vanished by folding reality around themselves, and the Axiom ships simply blinked out of existence as their AIs calculated perfect teleportation coordinates. Lisa turned to her crew. Set course for station departure vector 7. Let's get our ambassador and go home. Captain, said Jake Morris hesitantly, do you think they're right about us being primitive? Lisa looked at the advanced alien technologies disappearing into the stars. Then she looked at her human crew, working together with determination despite their simple technology. Maybe our ships are simpler, she said finally. Maybe our weapons are older designs, but I've seen what humans can do when they're determined. There's more than one way to be powerful. Amy Shaw looked up from her science station. Captain, I'm getting some strange readings. Something big is approaching the station, really big. Lisa frowned and moved to the sensor display. How big? Bigger than anything we've seen today. And it's coming fast. Lieutenant Morris checked his tactical display. Captain, whatever it is, it's not broadcasting any identification codes, and it's heading straight for Nexus Prime. Lisa felt a cold chill run down her spine. Something was coming. something that wasn't part of the ceremony. As she watched her screens, she saw all the alien warships that had just left suddenly changing course, turning back toward the station. Whatever was approaching, it had scared even the galaxy's most powerful species. "All hands," Lisa announced, over the ship's communication system. "Prepare for potential threat situation. This demonstration might not be over yet." She stared out the viewing window, waiting to see what new power was about to arrive at Nexus Prime. Little did she know that her own species was about to surprise the galaxy in ways no one could imagine. The warning sirens on Nexus Prime started with a low wail that grew louder by the second. Lisa Gordon watched her screens as red alerts flashed across every display. All the alien warships that had just demonstrated their power were now scrambling back toward the station. "Captain, we're receiving emergency broadcasts on all frequencies," reported Jake Morris, his young face pale with worry. "Every ship is going to battle stations." Lisa moved quickly to the main tactical display. What she saw made her heart sink. A massive dark shape was approaching the station, bigger than all the assembled warships combined. It wasn't just big. It was wrong somehow, like a hole in space that moved. "Amy, what are we looking at?" Lisa asked her science officer. Amy Shaw's fingers flew over her instruments. Her voice shook as she read the results. "Captain, it's huge. Mass readings are off the scale, and there's something strange about its energy signature. It's like it's absorbing light." The communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke, but it wasn't like any language their translators had heard before. It was deep and hollow, like an echo from inside an empty cave. When the computers finally managed to translate it, the words made everyone on the bridge freeze. "Inferior species of the galaxy," the voice announced. "You have forgotten the true power that once ruled these stars. We are the Devourers, and we have returned from our long sleep. Surrender immediately or be consumed." Lisa felt her stomach drop. Every species in the galaxy learned about the Devourers in their history lessons. They were said to be extinct, destroyed in a war thousands of years ago. Ancient species that ate entire worlds and turned stars into empty husks. The Zephyrian High Commander's voice cut through the panic. "The Devourers are myths, fairy tales told to children. This is some kind of trick." Their reply came immediately. "We are no myth, crystal birds. We remember when your species crawled in mud ponds. We remember all of you." The dark shape moved closer, and now Lisa could see details. It wasn't a ship in any normal sense. It looked like a massive creature made of metal and shadow, with tendrils reaching out from its body like the arms of a giant squid. Each tendril was as big as a battleship. "All vessels," the Krellian ambassador commanded through the open channel. "Prepare to engage. We will show these Devourers that the galaxy has grown strong since they went to sleep." Lisa watched as the assembled fleets opened fire. The Zephyrians phased their weapons to strike from multiple dimensions. The Krellians fired their dark matter cannons. The Valdari launched psychic attacks that should have torn any living mind apart. The Axiom AIs calculated perfect firing solutions and unleashed computer-guided missiles. Every attack hit the dark shape. For a moment, space lit up like a festival of lights. Then the light faded, and the dark shape was completely unchanged. "Insufficient," said the hollow voice. "We consume energy. We grow stronger from your attacks." One of the dark tendrils moved faster than seemed possible for something so large. It struck a Krellian battlecruiser. The ship's dark matter shields activated, but they meant nothing. The tendril wrapped around the ship and began pulling it back toward the main body. Lisa watched in horror as the tendril didn't crush the ship. Instead, the ship began to dissolve. Metal turned to liquid, then to gas, then to nothing. The ship and its crew were being broken down into atoms and absorbed. "All ships, fall back," someone shouted over the channel. Lisa wasn't sure which species had given the order. The alien fleets tried to retreat, but their advanced technologies failed them. The Zephyrians tried to phase away, but invisible gravity wells trapped them in normal space. The Krellians attempted to jump through dimensions, but their portals collapsed before they could escape. The Valdari found their psychic connections clouded by something ancient and angry. The Axiom AIs calculated escape routes, but all their paths led to the same place, into the grasp of the Devourers. "Captain," Amy called out, "I'm getting a tight beam message from Earth Command. It's encrypted on the emergency frequency." Lisa moved to the communications station. "Put it through." The voice that came through was Admiral Claire Mitchell, head of Earth Space Forces. Her words were quick and urgent. "Captain Gordon, this message is classified beyond top secret. We've located the UES Titan. It's approaching your position." Lisa felt confused. "Admiral, I don't understand. The Titan was listed as lost during the Outer Rim explorations 3 years ago." "The Titan was never lost, Captain. It was always meant to disappear. Project Looking Glass was more successful than anyone imagined. The ship has been refitted with technology that, well, let's just say it's unlike anything Earth has built before." "What kind of technology?" Lisa asked, though she suspected she wouldn't like the answer. The kind that required complete secrecy. The kind that comes from combining human engineering with artifacts we found on the edge of our solar system. "Captain Roy Baker is in command. He'll arrive within the hour." Lisa looked at the battle happening outside her window. Ships were being pulled apart like toys in the hands of an angry giant. "Admiral, I'm watching the most powerful species in the galaxy being destroyed. What can one human ship do against that?" "More than you think, Captain. Baker knows what he's doing. Just hold position and wait for him. And Captain, when the Titan arrives, follow Baker's lead no matter what it looks like he's doing. Trust me on this." The transmission ended, leaving Lisa staring at the empty screen. She turned back to watch the battle, if it could even be called that anymore. It was more like watching a harvest. "Captain," Jake Morris said, "the Devourers are sending another message." The hollow voice filled the bridge again. "Your resistance amuses us. We have absorbed 3 battlecruisers, 5 dreadnoughts, and 12 destroyers. Your weapons feed us. Your shields are meaningless. Surrender, or we will consume this station and everything in it." Through the window, Lisa could see the alien delegates on the station itself. They were scrambling for evacuation ships, but many of the smaller vessels were already being caught by the dark tendrils. Carl Foster, Earth's ambassador, was trying to help organize people, but panic was spreading quickly. "Captain," Amy announced, "I'm detecting a new contact approaching. It's smaller than the alien warships, but it's moving incredibly fast, and this is strange. It's coming from a vector that shouldn't be possible, like it just appeared from nowhere." Lisa checked her own screens. The new ship was indeed approaching, fast. It had a configuration she'd never seen before, sleeker than human design, but not matching any known alien technology either. The hull seemed to shift and move like living metal. "Identification?" she asked. "Transmitting now." "Oh my. Captain, it's identifying itself as the UES Titan. Captain Roy Baker commanding." Lisa felt a mix of relief and worry. Help was coming, but what kind of help? What had Earth been hiding? The Devourers hadn't noticed the approaching human ship yet. They were too busy consuming more alien vessels. But Lisa noticed something else. While the alien fleets were in chaos, their advanced technologies failing them, her simple human systems were still working fine. "Jake, prepare our basic defensive systems," she ordered. "Amy, keep monitoring that Titan. I want to know everything you can tell me about it." "Yes, Captain," both officers replied. Lisa looked out at the destruction happening around Nexus Prime. The most advanced species in the galaxy were being eaten by something that shouldn't exist. Their superior technologies were useless against an enemy that consumed energy itself. And now, Earth's answer was approaching. A ship that combined human engineering with unknown alien technology. Lisa didn't know if it would be enough, but she suddenly understood why Admiral Mitchell had told her to trust Captain Baker. Sometimes the best solution to an impossible problem was something completely unexpected. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was being unexpected. The Titan was getting closer. Soon they would all find out what Earth had been hiding in the Outer Rim. The space around Nexus Prime looked like a graveyard. Metal debris floated everywhere, the remains of alien ships that had been torn apart by the Devourers. Lisa Gordon watched from her bridge as another Krellian destroyer was pulled into the Dark creature's mass and dissolved into nothing. "Captain, the Titan is approaching fast," Amy Shaw reported, her voice tight with tension. "Estimated arrival in 3 minutes." Lisa nodded, her eyes fixed on the main viewer. Through the chaos, she could see the approaching human ship more clearly now. The Titan didn't look like any human vessel she'd ever seen. Its hull seemed to flow like liquid metal, constantly shifting and changing shape. Strange energy patterns danced across its surface. "Jake, open a channel to the Titan," she ordered. Static crackled, then a calm voice came through. "UES Defender, this is Captain Roy Baker of the Titan. Hold your position and maintain course. We'll handle this situation." Lisa felt a surge of disbelief. One ship against that monster? "Captain Baker, you can see what we're dealing with here. Every advanced fleet in the galaxy is being destroyed. Maybe we should retreat and call for reinforcements." "Negative, Captain Gordon. Trust me, we've prepared for this exact scenario. Just watch and be ready to follow my lead." The channel closed. Lisa exchanged worried glances with her crew. Roy Baker sounded confident, but how could any single ship face the Devourers? On the station, she could see through the windows that panic was complete. Admiral Nancy Cole was coordinating evacuation efforts, but there weren't enough ships left to rescue everyone. Carl Foster was still helping people reach the escape pods, even though he could have left already. The Devourers noticed the Titan now. Several dark tendrils, each the size of a battleship, turned toward the approaching human vessel. The hollow voice echoed across all frequencies. "Another offering comes to us. Small ship of the primitive ones, you cannot save these others. Join them in dissolution." The Titan didn't slow down. Instead, Lisa watched as the ship began to change. It wasn't just the hull shifting now. The entire vessel was transforming. Parts of it extended outward like wings, then folded back in. Strange symbols appeared and disappeared on its surface, glowing with soft blue light. "Captain," Amy whispered, "the energy readings from the Titan are unlike anything I've seen. It's like the ship itself is alive." 3 massive dark tendrils reached for the Titan, each one big enough to wrap around a space station. The bridge. Crew of the Defender watched in silence, waiting for the inevitable. Then something impossible happened. The Titan didn't dodge or raise shields. Instead, the ship's hull began to ripple like water. When the first tendril touched it, the metal surface flowed around the dark appendage like a living thing. The tendril tried to dissolve the ship like it had done to so many others, but the Titan began absorbing the dark energy instead. "What in the stars?" Lisa breathed. Roy Baker's voice came over the open channel, addressing not just the Defender but all ships still functioning. "All vessels, observe. This is what happens when you don't just copy alien technology, you understand it and improve it." The second and third tendrils struck the Titan, but the same thing happened. The ship's hull flowed around them, absorbing their destructive energy. Blue lightning began dancing across the Titan's surface, growing brighter as it consumed more of the Devourer's power. On the bridge of the Defender, Amy was frantically checking her instruments. "Captain, the Titan isn't just defending itself. It's feeding on the Devourer's energy just like they feed on others. But it's doing something more. It's converting that energy into something else entirely." The Devourer's main mass began to pulse, with angry red light. The hollow voice boomed across space, now sounding uncertain for the first time. "Impossible. You are primitives. You cannot possess such power." Roy Baker's reply was calm and almost friendly. "That's your first mistake. You think we're primitives because we don't use the same technology as others. But we learned something important. Understanding beats copying every time." The Titan suddenly changed. All the absorbed energy created a brilliant light around the ship. The liquid metal hull formed into new shapes, becoming something that looked like a cross between an ancient sailing ship and a modern warship, but built from starlight itself. "All ships," Roy Baker announced. "You're about to see what happens when humans don't just use technology. We understand it, respect it, and make it better. Titan crew, activate the synthesis protocol." A woman's voice responded from the Titan. "Protocol activated, Captain. Engineer Pete Clark reporting all systems merged and synchronized. We're go for full integration." Another voice, crisp and precise, came through. Tactical Officer Helen Brady here. Graviton weapons charging. Targeting. Solution acquired on the Devourer's core mass. Lisa watched in amazement as the Titan's shape continued to change. The liquid metal now formed complex patterns that seemed mathematical in nature, like equations written in metal and light. The ship had become something completely new, something that defied classification. The Devourers attacked with everything they had. More tendrils, energy blasts that could destroy planets, gravity waves that could tear ships apart at the molecular level. But the Titan moved through all of it like it was nothing. The ship didn't dodge. It flowed. Where other ships would be. Destroyed. The Titan absorbed and transformed. Magnificent, whispered the Zephyrian High Commander over the open channel. They're not using our technology or the Devourer's technology. They've created something entirely new. The Krellian ambassador, its voice full of awe, added, they've combined understanding of multiple principles into a single approach. It's elegant. Roy Baker's voice came through again. Dr. Carol Wang, our chief scientist, will explain. Doctor? New voice joined the conversation, warm and educational. What you're seeing is the result of years of studying alien artifacts discovered in our solar system. We didn't try to copy what we found. Instead, we studied how it worked, understood the basic principles, and then applied human creativity to build something new. The Titan represents a synthesis of ideas, not imitation. The Devourers were clearly frustrated now. Their attacks were becoming more frantic, more desperate, but every assault only made the Titan stronger, brighter, more magnificent. You cannot exist, the hollow voice screamed. We consume all. We have consumed for millions of years. That's your second mistake, Roy Baker replied calmly. You think consuming is the same as understanding. You eat technology without learning from it. We learn from everything we encounter. The Titan's transformation reached its peak. It now looked like a ship made from pure mathematical perfection, every line and curve designed for ultimate function. Energy patterns that resembled both circuit boards and neural networks flowed across its surface. Lisa realized something profound was happening. This wasn't just a battle between ships. It was a confrontation between two completely different philosophies of power. The Devourers represented consumption and imitation. Humanity, at least as shown by the Titan, represented understanding and synthesis. Captain Baker, she called over the channel, what happens now? Now, Captain Gordon, we show them what real power looks like. Not the power to consume or copy, but the power to create something better. Stand by for graviton cannon deployment. The space around the Titan began to warp. Not in the way the Devourers manipulated reality through consumption, but like reality itself was becoming more organized, more logical. Lisa watched as stars in the background seemed to align into perfect mathematical patterns. Graviton cannon charged, reported Tactical Officer Helen Brady. Target locked. Firing in 3, 2, 1. What happened next would forever change how every species in the galaxy thought about power, technology, and the humans they had dismissed as primitive. The weapon that emerged from the Titan didn't look like a cannon. It appeared as a stream of pure mathematics, numbers, symbols, and geometric patterns flowing through space like a river of light. Lisa Gordon watched from the Defender's bridge as this impossible display unfolded. What are we looking at? Jake Morris asked, his voice barely a whisper. Amy Shaw's instruments were going crazy with readings. Captain, it's not following any known physics. It's like the Titan is rewriting reality itself. The mathematical stream reached the Devourers in seconds. But instead of exploding or destroying, something strange happened. The dark tendrils that had been pulling apart alien ships suddenly stopped moving. The massive shadowy body of the ancient creature began to shimmer. No! The hollow voice roared across space. You cannot bind us. We are eternal. We are power itself. Roy Baker's calm response came through the channel. You're not power. You're just very old. And you stopped learning a long time ago. The Titan's weapon was doing something Lisa had never seen before. Where it touched the Devourers, the dark matter wasn't being destroyed. Instead, it was being organized. The chaotic energy patterns of the ancient creature were being rewritten into structured forms. "Pete, how are the containment fields holding?" Captain Baker asked his engineer. "Holding steady, Captain," Pete Clark replied from the Titan. "The reorganization matrix is working perfectly. We're not destroying them. We're teaching them a new way to exist." The Devourer's struggling became more intense. Tendrils lashed out wildly, trying to break free from the mathematical patterns that were wrapping around them. Energy blasts fired in all directions, but none of them reached any ships. The Titan's weapon had created a perfect containment field. Lisa watched, in amazement as the dark, chaotic form of the Devourers began to change. The shadowy mass was becoming translucent, shot through with brilliant lines of blue and white light. It was like watching a storm cloud transform into a constellation. "Warning to all vessels," came Tactical Officer Helen Brady's voice. "Maintain safe distance. We're about to complete the restructuring process." The alien delegates, both on the station and in their remaining ships, watched in stunned silence. The Zephyrian High Commander's beak clicked nervously as its ship's instruments tried to make sense of what they were seeing. "Impossible," the Krellian ambassador muttered. "They're not fighting the Devourers. They're fixing them?" Dr. Carroll, Wong's voice provided the explanation. "Exactly. The Devourers aren't evil. They're broken. Millions of years ago, they were probably a noble species. But they chose the path of consuming rather than understanding. That choice corrupted them, made them into what they are today." The Valdari representative's mental voice touched everyone's minds, filled with wonder. "The humans are healing them, not destroying their essence, but restoring their original purpose." The final phase began. The Titan's weapon pulse intensified, and the reorganization reached the Devourer's core consciousness. The angry roars stopped. The struggling ceased. In place of the hollow, angry voice came something else, something surprised and confused. What have you done?" The voice was different now, clearer, almost gentle. We remember. We remember who we were before the hunger. We gave you back your choice," Captain Baker replied. "You can continue as you were, consuming everything you touch, or you can remember your original purpose, to nurture and guide younger species." The transformed Devourers were beautiful. Where before they had been a mass of dark shadow and hunger, they now appeared as beings of structured light. Their tendrils remained, but now they glowed with soft, welcoming energy. The core mass had become something like a living star, warm and inviting rather than threatening. We choose understanding," the voice said, now filled with wonder. "For so long we only knew consumption. We forgot that there was another way." Around Nexus Prime, the alien fleets began to recover from their shock. Ships that had been hiding behind debris or racing for escape now slowed and turned back. The danger was over, but the implications were staggering. "Captain Baker," Lisa called over the channel, "how did you know this would work?" Roy Baker's voice carried a hint of a smile. "Trial and error, Captain Gordon, and a lot of faith in human curiosity. When we found those artifacts in our solar system, we didn't just study what they were. We studied what they could be, what they should be. The technology we developed wasn't just about defense. It was about understanding and healing." The Axiom. Republic's AI delegate processed this information and provided its analysis. Probability calculations indicate that this approach required intuitive leaps that no logical system could predict. The humans combined science with creativity and hope. Statistically improbable, but empirically effective. Engineer Pete Clark chimed in from the Titan. "The captain's being modest. This wasn't just about technology. We had philosophers, artists, and children help design the synthesis protocol. We needed perspectives that weren't limited by standard scientific thinking. The Devourers, no longer threatening, now simply ancient beings of light, began to retreat peacefully. We will return to the outer darkness to rediscover what we once knew. If the galaxy has questions about the deep past, young species may call upon us. We will share rather than consume. As they departed, their beautiful transformed forms casting gentle light across space, the assembled species were left to contemplate what they had witnessed. Ambassador Carl Foster's voice came through from the station. "Captain Baker, I think it's time for some explanations. The galaxy deserves to know how Earth developed this capability." Roy Baker paused before answering. "With respect, Ambassador, the technology isn't what's important. What matters is the approach. We didn't just ask how can we be stronger, we asked how can we understand, not how can we win, but how can we help." Dr. Carol Wang added, "Every species here has incredible technology, quantum phases, dark matter manipulation, psychic controls, AI precision, all amazing achievements, but you all developed them in isolation, focusing on your own superiority. We looked at everything and asked, what if we could bring it all together in a new way?" Lisa felt a profound shift in how everyone was looking at humanity. The mockery was gone. The dismissal had vanished. In its place was respect, curiosity, and something that might even be admiration. The Krellian ambassador spoke first. "Human Titan, we request permission to study your approach, not to copy, but to understand how you achieve synthesis. We offer formal alliance," added the Zephyrian High Commander. "Not because you have proven stronger than us, but because you have shown a wisdom we lack." The Valdari's collective consciousness reached out. "Your minds think in patterns we cannot simulate. This is humbling and fascinating." Even the Axiom AI offered, "Data exchange protocols requested. Your non-logical problem-solving methods warrant systematic analysis." Captain Baker's response was gracious. "All species are welcome to learn with us. That's what this was always about. Not showing power, but sharing understanding." As the various ships began forming up for joint return to their homeworlds, the atmosphere had completely changed. Where before there had been competition and condescension, now there was curiosity and cooperation. Lisa stood on her bridge, looking at the Titan, now returning to a more conventional ship configuration but still gleaming with the same liquid metal hull. "Amy, can you detect any other ships like the Titan in Earth's fleet?" Amy Shaw checked her sensors carefully. "No, Captain. The Titan appears to be unique. But I'm reading something interesting. The energy signatures suggest that its technology could be adapted to upgrade any existing vessel, regardless of design." "So this isn't about Earth being superior," Jake Morris mused. "It's about showing everyone a new way forward." Lisa nodded. "That's exactly what it is, and that's the most powerful thing of all, not winning, but helping everyone win together." Outside, the window, the transformed light from the healed devourers still cast a gentle glow across space. It would serve as a reminder of this day when the galaxy learned that true power came not from strength or consumption, but from understanding, and the courage to create something new. 1 month later, the space around Nexus Prime looked completely different. Instead of warships maintaining careful distances, various species vessels worked together, their different technologies sharing data streams like a vast neural network. Lisa Gordon stood on the observation deck of the expanded station, watching construction crews from 6 different worlds install new equipment. "It's hard to believe how much things have changed," Jake Morris said, joining her at the viewing window. Lisa nodded. "A month ago, everyone was measuring power by weapons. Now look at them." She pointed to where a Zephyrian crystal ship worked alongside a human freighter, their crews sharing tools and talking through instant translators. Ambassador Carl Foster approached them, looking more relaxed than Lisa had ever seen him. "Captain Gordon, Captain Baker is about to address the new council. He asked if you'd like to hear his presentation." "Absolutely," Lisa replied. She followed Carl to the main assembly hall, where representatives of all galactic species had gathered. Roy Baker stood at the center, no longer in his ship's captain uniform, but wearing simple civilian clothes. The Titan rested in Docking Bay 12, its hull still shimmering with that liquid metal sheen. But now it was surrounded by ships from every species, all studying its design. Friends, Roy began, his voice warm and informal. I know you all want to understand the synthesis protocol and the technology behind the Titan. Dr. Carol Wang and our team have prepared full documentation. But first, I want to share something more important. The gathered delegates, from the feathered Zephyrians to the tentacled Krellians, leaned forward attentively. The artifacts we discovered in our solar system weren't just advanced technology, Roy continued. They were a message. When we decoded the final component, we realized they had been left by an ancient civilization that faced the same choice every species eventually faces: consumption or understanding. A hologram appeared above the assembly, showing symbols and equations that seemed to shift and change as people looked at them. Dr. Carol Wang stepped forward to explain. These equations don't just describe physical laws, they describe principles of creativity and cooperation. The civilization that left them discovered that true advancement comes not from mastering individual technologies, but from combining different approaches. But why share this with primitive humans? Asked the Zephyrian High Commander, its voice respectful rather than mocking now. Why not leave it for more advanced species? Roy smiled. Because sometimes the newcomers see things differently. Sometimes being less advanced means being more open to new ideas. Amy Shaw, now working as part of the Joint Scientific Council, brought up new data on the hologram. What we've discovered is remarkable. When different species share understanding rather than competing, the combined knowledge grows exponentially. Watch this. The display showed how each species' technology could be enhanced using insights from others, not by copying but by understanding underlying principles. The Zephyrian phase technology could be combined with Krellian dark matter understanding to create entirely new applications. The Valdari psychic networks could interface with Axiom AI systems to create hybrid consciousness networks that surpassed either individual approach. This is the real secret, Engineer Pete Clark added, his enthusiasm obvious. Not that humans had better technology, but that we approached problems by asking, what if? What if we combined this with that? What if we looked at it from another angle? The Krellian ambassador's tentacles moved in what Lisa now recognized as excitement. We have already implemented preliminary combining of our dark matter understanding with human creativity principles. The results are astonishing. The Valdari collective mind spoke to everyone present. We discovered that when our psychic capabilities merge with human imaginative thinking, we can conceive of possibilities that neither species could reach alone. Even the Axiom AI had news. Logical analysis confirms that nonlinear creative approaches increased our problem-solving efficiency by 312%. Human unpredictability is actually a strategic advantage. Roy looked around the assembly. This is what we really showed the Devourers. Not that we were stronger, but that there was a different path. They had chosen isolation and consumption. We chose cooperation and synthesis. Captain Baker began to walk among the delegates as he spoke. Every species here has unique gifts. The Zephyrians' ability to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Krellians' deep understanding of fundamental forces. The Valdari's psychic connections. The Axiom's perfect logic. And yes, humanity's creative chaos. He stopped and looked directly at each delegate. Alone, we're all limited. Together, we're unlimited. The Axiom AI processed this and announced, Proposal, establish permanent collaborative research stations throughout the galaxy staffed by all species. Hypothesis, combined advancement rate will exceed some of individual rates. Agreed, said the Zephyrian High Commander immediately. The Krellians support this initiative, added their ambassador. One by one, each species voiced their support. The galaxy was forming something new. Not a confederation of competing powers, but a true community of learning. Lisa found herself standing next to Admiral Nancy Cole, who had been quietly observing. Admiral, is this what you intended when you sent the Titan? Nancy smiled knowingly. We hoped for cooperation. We didn't expect this level of transformation. It seems humans aren't the only ones ready for change. A celebration began spontaneously. Music from different worlds began, playing simultaneously, creating an improvised symphony that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Zephyrian crystal harmonics blended with Krelian bass resonances, while Valdari psychic melodies intertwined with human instruments and Axiom synthetic compositions. Roy Baker found his way to Lisa's group. "Captain Gordon, your ship will be one of the first to receive the new upgrades. We're combining your existing systems with insights from all species. The Defender will become something entirely new." "Will it still be human?" Lisa asked. Roy's eyes twinkled. "It will be human and more. Just like humanity is now part of something bigger than ourselves." Jake Morris, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Sir, what about other threats? What if more ancient species return?" "They will," Roy agreed. "But they'll find a galaxy that works together. And they'll face the same choice the Devourers did. Join us in understanding, or be left behind by their own limitations." As the celebration continued, Lisa looked out through the massive windows at the ships of different species working together. She remembered the mockery from a month ago, the dismissive attitudes, the competition for dominance. Now she saw engineers sharing tool designs, scientists collaborating on equations none could solve alone, and even military officers planning joint operations based on combined tactical principles. "You know what I realized?" she said to Roy. "Power isn't about what you can do to others. It's about what you can do with others." Roy nodded. That's the lesson the galaxy was ready to learn. They just needed someone to show them how. Above them, through the transparent dome, the stars shone differently now. Where once each species had seen distant worlds to conquer or territories to defend, they now saw opportunities for collaboration, mysteries to solve together, and a galaxy full of potential for creation rather than consumption. The age of isolation was ending. The age of synthesis had begun. And somewhere in the outer darkness, the transformed Devourers watched approvingly, their ancient wisdom finally finding worthy students among the younger races who had learned that true power comes not from domination, but from the courage to understand, the wisdom to share, and the creativity to build something better together. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.